Alright, so we're here today because sometimes wheels don't fit and you got to do some stuff to make them fit. This car's a NA version MX-5, but everything I do in this video will be the same for pretty much every single car, especially the back end of the car, because the front ends are quite often different. We won't be doing the front end of this car because it doesn't need it, but everything I show you how to do it in this video, then it should be applicable to pretty much any car.
The first step is to jack up your car.
So the next part's actually a pretty important part of this. So a lot of people will just jack it up or have it on a lift or whatever, and then put the machine on and start rolling it. But the problem that you induce then is that you're not going to have the same radius as the actual wheel is going to have at the resting height. So what you want to do is get some axle stands and put them under the lower control arms and then lower the car so it's at resting height, and then do all your work. Okay, so the first step is going to be to fold this lip in, because otherwise we're just going to sort of push on this lip. You can see where the tyre has been sort of rubbing on this lip, so that's the start of destroying your tyre pretty much. So before we do that, we're just going to soften the paint, and to soften the paint we're just going to warm it up, and we're not going to heat it till it bubbles or anything like that. We're just going to soften it up so it's a little bit pliable and it will stretch a little bit. That will enable us to hopefully not damage the paint too much. This car's getting flares afterwards, so it's not as important, but I'd just like to demonstrate how to do it on a car that you maybe care about. Alright, touch it every now and again to see how warm it is, because if you heat it up too much you're just going to destroy your paint. All we want to do is warm the metal up to make it a bit softer. This one's got a fair bit to go, so I'll just keep hitting it with the heat. Alright, so once you've got the metal warm enough that you can't hold on to it, but it's not bubbling and stuff, you can still touch it but not hold on to it, then you need to start the next part of the process, which is the hammer. This is a nylon dead blow hammer, really useful, good for this. You can use whatever hammer you want, I don't care, but I like using this. So what we're going to do is roll that lip from flat. We're going to roll it up to start the process of pushing the guard out, because otherwise we'll just be pushing on awkward angles. So this is the first step. You don't want to bash it out all at once. You want to take little steps and slowly graduate it, otherwise you'll stretch this and it'll look like dog shit. Alright, now you can see the start of the process. I've already rolled this up inside there, so we don't need that to be perfect because we can smooth that out with the machine. But this is what you should start off with. Alright, if you're watching this video, you probably have one of these, or you borrowed one of these, or you're going to buy one of these. This is a generic off-the-shelf guard roller, but as you can see I've made a few slight modifications. So the first modification that I made was to this part here. So usually this would be about this tall, this part here, but I've cut it down to get it closer to the center of the pivot. And I've also scalloped this out here as well, and that allows this roller to take a much more natural angle, and it'll conform much better to the guard itself, so we can really select our own angle of how we want to do it. The way these are made are intended to be used wrong, but if you make a couple of modifications to this, you can get a much better job, and it's a much better purpose-made tool, and you'll get a lot better result from it. So now that we're mounted on the wheel hub, I strongly suggest that you use all 4 studs, because this can put a bit of pressure on it. You can already see how different this machine looks when you're at a resting height, and how different it would look if this machine wasn't modified as well. So this would be cracked out here, and this machine wouldn't even suit this car. So because I primarily deal with small Japanese cars, I've modified this machine to suit my needs, but I do get a much better result out of it every single time on every single car, no matter how big the wheel arches are. It's much better to do this. So once we're mounted on the wheel hub, the next step is to heat the guard again and make it soft, because in all the time that it takes to do this, your metal will sort of cool down a little bit. So we'll just heat it up and we'll start the rolling process. So I'm just going to move it out of the way. What we're going to do is lock our roller in the position that we want the angle of the guard to come out, and then lock the arm off. So we're all fixed there. And then we're going to start to push the guard out. Alright, so now we're going to start to push the guard out. It's a delicate process. Don't go too fast. You don't need to do the whole thing in one pass. It will take quite a while to do this neatly. If you want it to look nice, then just take your time. So we're just going to push it out and let it roll out where it needs to. And once it sort of drops by itself, then you take the next bite. And only need to do about half turns on the handle. Just go slow. Alright, we've gone a bit cold, so I'm just going to heat this metal a bit more. Alright, you can see now from this first run how the angle has changed. So we'll just have to adjust our roller so that we keep the angle that we want the guard to end up at, and then we'll just keep going. Alright, so the end result is this. Nice curve, nice uniform shape. It doesn't look like it's been bashed up in Mayhem to fit 15 by 15s. It looks pretty neat, and I don't think if you really knew what they looked like before, you wouldn't really complain about it now. We only managed to damage the paint in only one part around here, probably partly to do with the fact that this is painted in, I don't know, someone's backyard maybe. But on regular paint, I definitely think this would have stretched and we would have been fine. So if you remember all the steps, first you have to start the roll and then heat the material up and just go bit by bit. Just take small chunks at it. Don't try and do it all in one go. Definitely having the modified machine helps, but if you're dealing with a standard machine, I'm sure you can make it work.